Hello, everyone, and welcome to another chat with Andy the Gabby Cabby on a Sunday, the usual spot. I hope everyone's all right. Hope you all enjoyed your weekends. And you are here with me once again. May I ask, before we go much further, if you're in the door just now, please hit the thumbs up on the chat because that helps the algorithm push it around everywhere. And that's important for the channel. Let's see who we've got. Chifundo Jones Fire, hello to you. Chris Card, Minge Pump, Blue Angel 10, Liz. Got some geography going on here at the moment. People saying where they're from, which is nice. Got a good spread. Ian Williamson, Michael Hancock, Oxford. I'll be talking about Oxford in a little while. Mad Mank, Aaron Kidd, Peter, out and about with Richie. Hello to you, Blue Angel, Anne-Marie White, Nigel the Handyman, and everyone else. Julie Keys, hello, good to see you. Kay Caller from Hertfordshire, good to see you. Pamela Kane, Ian Brown, loads and loads and loads and loads of you. Welcome, one and all. It's good to see you once again, and it's been a very interesting week for sure. As always, my moderator is running in the background, looking out for comments, and we'll have a bit of a readout at the end, see what you all have to say, and let's get on with it. Well, been an interesting week, hasn't it, in government, in Parliament. We saw a certain politician say what everyone else was thinking and then got banned. Yes, they have a habit of that. He had the whip removed. I do, of course, refer to Lee Anderson. Now, who thinks that he should have had the whip removed? Give me a 1 in the chat if you do. Give me a 2 in the chat if you don't. So if he wanted to have the whip removed, 1, if not 2. Yeah, a lot of you are coming through with 2s. Which I pretty much expected. That's pretty much the opinion all across the board. Oh, we got a 1 in there. That's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but the majority is no, he shouldn't have had the whip removed, and a 1664 for Lord Jim Dandy. Well, I put this question out in the week as well in a poll to, well, all the subscribers, and I asked the same question again. Should Lee Anderson be suspended? 3,000 votes, 3,100 actually. 96% said no, he shouldn't have been suspended or had the whip removed. So we're pretty much all of the same opinion here. Now, he only said what, many people are thinking, and are very concerned about. And as a result, he'd been suspended. Suella Braverman was another one that come out and said, blah, 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 blah. And will she get in trouble next? Who knows? Probably not, because I reckon she's got a lot of dirt on old Dishy Rishi Sunak. What concerned me with Lee was the statement that came out afterwards. I found a little bit, I don't like that. It's almost like he was told, yes, we're going to take the whip away. You might get it back later, as long as you say this. There's a good boy. I don't know whether that's truth or not, but that's the way it felt to me. And a very interesting turn of events for sure. Government as a whole, to me, is in a hell of a lot of trouble because you saw the scenes outside the Houses of Parliament, and you saw what happened with that big banner being flashed onto Big Ben, and you saw how they all cowered in the chamber. I saw a news article, I think it was on GB News, about, the possibility of giving bodyguards to MPs because they're in fear of their safety. And they can't seem to understand why they're in fear of their safety. Why should they have to be? The basic job of an MP is to represent our best interests in that place. It is really as simple as that. I want to show you something now. I'm just uploading it. Here we go. What do MPs do? The UK Public elected members of Parliament to represent their interests and concerns in the House of Commons. MPs consider and can propose new laws, as well as raising issues that matter to you in the House. This includes asking government ministers questions about current issues, including those which affect local constituents. MPs split their time working in Parliament, working in the constituency, and a little bit of work for the political party as well. So that is straight off of Parliament's website. What is an MP? And for a long time now, a lot of us have become disenfranchised and feel that, you know, our best interests aren't necessarily being looked after in that place because of a series of poor decisions, a series of mismanagements, and an overall cock-up. And we've got to the point where the disenfranchised, and I refer to the Wellingborough by-election, which I did content on earlier, we just won't bother coming out and voting. With the first past the post system we're stuck with, that only works in the favour of the big two, Conservatives and Labour. I mean, here's another question for you. Do you think we're going to end up with a Labour government? Give me a 1 if a yes, 2 if a no. I'd be very interested in that. I see a few things about Sadiq Khan as well. So 1 yes, 2 no. Well, mainly 1s, but a few 2s creeping in as well. We don't want any of them. Pete, MSN barely report anything at all about this. So I'm going to talk about the mainstream media shortly as well. That's another thing I want to cover tonight. Kay, evening Andy from Plymouth. 2, 1, God help us. That's how I feel, to be honest with you. Really hope Sakissars doesn't get in. I do not consent. Yeah, Minge Pump. That is a very, very valid point, and I've covered this as well. I do not consent. Now, at the end of the day, this is only going to change if that disenfranchised portion of the electorate come out and say what they feel on the ballot paper. Now, if everyone says, I do not consent, if that's how they feel, then, you know, it could change things. Or alternately, if there is another political party, for example, Reform, that everyone talks about, get out there and make the change. You've got to get out and vote with your heart. Just don't ignore it because you give them tacit agreement to carry on as they please. And we saw that with the coalition many, many years ago. Now, just here's another question for you. Who's willing to vote Reform? 1 if you are, 2 if you're not. And I know one very major concern with them, which I've seen many people talk about. So 1 if you will, 2 if you won't. A bit of a mixed bag there. Hello, Tom West. I do not consent. You need the legal terminology for it. We know what it is on the Daily Planet Club. Come and join us. I'll come over and have a look. There's another person I follow as well that sends me emails on all this stuff on a fairly regular basis. So I'll have a look. Mark Patton, do you remember the poll tax riots? I was involved. I was only a child at that time. I must have been 12 or 13, something like that. And I remember them very well because my mum, I haven't seen her yet, actually. She usually comes on here. My mum had a job which she was doing quite well at, and she managed to budget everything so we would be okay because you had the rates and everything else. And then all of a sudden the poll tax was created, And he just kind of, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? She was very, very worried indeed. And what happened after that, obviously we ended up with what we now know as the council tax. So I do remember them very well, very well. And it was a bad time. I think we're heading for, a time where we're going to have trouble like this again. Now, Reform released something they call their contract. We had this when they were the Brexit party all that time ago. Here it is. Julie Baldwin sent this to me this evening. Very much thank you for that. There you go. Reform UK, the Brexit party, our contract with you. Now, they took this line from the Brexit party era where they said that the word manifesto is a dirty word and they don't like it. So they're going to say contract instead. Well, contract or manifesto, it's, what you say you're going to do. And there you go, our contract with you. Britain needs reform and reform needs you. Richard Tice, blah, 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 blah. And there are the points of interest in the plan and what they say they're going to do with each one. That's, various things that do matter to people. 32 pages long. So I'm not going to sit here and read it all, but it is all out there. Assets.nationbuilder.com, Reform UK pages. Go and have a look, unless, of course, you saw the actual broadcast where they were talking about it. I think they were at Royal Ascot or something like that. So very interesting stuff. Now, let's have a look at a couple of comments and see what you've got to say. Michael Hancock, don't forget also Home Security bloke got sacked for speaking the truth. Yes, that seems to be what happens, isn't it? If there is an inconvenient truth spoken, it's swept under the carpet. The person who said it gets the boot. Out they go. Very, very telling that. Absolutely. Morris's monkey, I smashed the like button and now I have a big hole in my monitor. I didn't know you liked it that much. Lovely. Here we go. Hello, Tom West. The only way we can stop them is through voting, but we need to know how to do it. Join the Daily Planet Club. This is called Bypass Technology. Yeah, I'll certainly come and have a look. I'll certainly come and have a look for sure. Right. I mentioned reform specifically because I do a bit of work with Noel Wilcox behind the scenes. He's particularly interested in things such as ULEZ, which he's taking on in a personal capacity. And he's talking about the child maintenance service and uncovering, well, the rot at its core, what they're actually doing to parents. They're destroying lives, particularly men, some women. And for what? They don't care. They do not care. They just carry on with tactics such as falsely inflating incomes by 300% to service a fictional arrear balance that just simply doesn't exist. It's awful, awful stuff. Well, one of the things that's come to my attention, and again, I thank the person that sent this to me, and I want to mention it briefly this evening, is to do with ex-forces personnel. Basically anyone that was in the Army, Navy or Air Force. Can I have a show of hands? Has anyone in the chat tonight served in any of His or Her Majesty's forces? Obviously hers, if it was years ago, his now. So were you in the Army, Navy or Air Force of this country? Give us a 1 if you were, or a 2 if you weren't. Or if you don't want to say, that's fine. So 1 if you were, 2 if you weren't. Aaron was in the Army. 2, 2, 2. I was actually going to join the Air Force. My band again said ATC. Absolutely, Air Training Corps. I was in the Air Training Corps. Mick was a cub. Resistance. A lot of you are 2s. and many of you are either cadets as well. Great. Yeah, I was in the Air Training Corps. I love flying. I love everything about the air, and I wanted to join the Air Force. So I actually ended up in the RAF recruiting office at the age of 16 with my dad, but didn't go down that road. And I have a history, an army history in my family, going back about 2 or 3 generations. So as a result, I will always have an awful lot of time for veterans. Any veteran that is there that needs a helping hand or is a friend. I have veterans I consider friends. I have all the time in the world for them, all the time. And this thing that was sent to me earlier on was a little bit disturbing. Whenever you serve in the armed forces and you end up in a combat zone, you leave the army, you can apply for something called a disablement pension. I think they're more commonly known as war pensions. I know a couple of people who fall under this category. They have war pensions. And there is a bit of a scandal involving, the decision over the percentage of pension that is awarded to somebody coming out of the army. And it's caused awful, awful problems, a lot like the child maintenance service scandal has. And I haven't barely scratched the surface of this at the moment, but it's one of the areas I want to look into, because if there's a big group of people, veterans in this case, and you think of what they give up to go and serve their country and see things that they might not necessarily ever forget, and then they get screwed over by a government when they come home, it's something else that needs to be made public. And it is getting no press attention whatsoever. And yet again, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I've got a contact that feeds me this information. He's a veteran himself. And, the more stuff I can get, we will out it for sure. It's one to look out for. I did run a poll of, again, how many people are veterans. And there you go. I've been made aware this evening. I mean, I put this out a day or two ago, of a big scandal involving members of Her Majesty's, His Majesty's Armed Forces now, but hers at the time, which I hope to bring to you. Can I ask if you have ever served in the armed forces? Yes or no? There was 1,000 votes, and about 750 of you haven't. But there's, about 250 that have. So that's subscribers or people that have seen that post and chose to make a remark on it. But it's something I want to look into, and it's something I want to get to the bottom of. Definitely. It's wrong. It's wrong. There's so many injustices, with what goes on in this country with various things. We need to get to the bottom of it. This is the chat on a Sunday with Andy the Gabby Cabby, everybody. Welcome. If you're just joining us, good to see you all. If you haven't done so already, can I ask you, give it a thumbs up. We've got somewhere around 170 watching at the moment. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. And it just helps push the algorithm to move this live stream around everywhere. And it really helps the channel in turn, which is doing great guns. It really is. So I'm very pleased. I thank you all for your support. Another thing, a couple of people have mentioned they don't trust the MSM, mainstream media. They're not fit for purpose and all of this sort of thing. One thing the MSM is very good at, mainstream media, is not telling us things that, they don't want us to know. People like Maya Tusi, for example, cover an awful lot. They get off their bum with a microphone in their hand and go out there and cover things. You'll never see them on the news. They just don't want you to know. Another show of hands. Is there anybody in the house tonight that is a female over the age of 60 who had pension problems when it came to retiring. Basically, are you a WASPI, Women Against State Pension Increase? Let me know. One, if you are, two, if you're not. I know my mum had trouble with this, but it worked out in the end. Just looking out for the numbers. So, yeah, we've got one. Got a few ones in here, a few twos. The time profit, my wife is. Two. So there's a few of you. Yeah, I forget the month, but it was basically women that were born after a certain month in 1954 had their pension or the year they could get their pension moved. I remember the conversation my mum had with my late stepfather about her retiring, and I think they moved it a couple of times before she finally could. Worked out all right in the end, and she was okay. But there's so many women out there that have been completely and utterly done in by this, where they've planned financially. You work for 40, 50, sometimes 60 years, and you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to retire at this age. And all of a sudden you have the rug pulled out from under you. I know many make private arrangements and have private pensions and all of that sort of thing, granted, but there are many that do rely on the state, and it's awful. I was sent a statement that I want to read out, and I think it comes out in a video tomorrow as well, so I'll cover it then. And here we are. This is important, so please read. On the 5th and 6th of June, the UK government may be made to give back the right to retire at 60 to all those women who worked and paid national insurance. Currently, their pension payout is delayed until 66. We all know the pension age for women born in the 60s has been raised. Did you know a campaign called Back to 60 movement has won the right to a judicial review and is taking the DWP to the High Court? On the 5th and 6th of June, they will attempt to get the 3.9 million women justice over non-consultation in raising the pensionable age to 66 and above. Michael Mansfield QC will lead the case and the argument for the movement. However, there does not appear to be any media coverage regarding this significant event. That's why we're raising the awareness now. Let's hope for justice rightly deserved. There appears to be a media blackout on this issue, which suggests the government has put a block on the media reporting it. So let's use social media for what it's good at and share the hell out of it. Well, you get people like me and other YouTubers, other content creators. That's exactly what we will do. We will go where angels fear to tread. Liam Strange, get the likes up for Andy. Some of the most informative channel content that is relevant. Thank you, Liam. I appreciate that. Yeah, one of the most important things for the YouTube algorithm is that thumbs up. The more thumbs up something gets, the further around it does actually go. It pushes things around. So that is wonderful. We need as many of those as we possibly can. Another thing that attracted attention, which I want to run through with you, is this. This is a video that I did earlier in the week, a day or two ago, entitled Disqualified by the Police. And what was going on here, I read a news report that was sent to me regarding a proposal to give police powers to disqualify people at the roadside. So if they pull them over and it ends up they're pissed, or they've been shoving something up their nose, white coloured, they shouldn't have done, the police can automatically, disqualify them from driving. I was personally horrified at this. I thought the police shouldn't have that much power, and legally, should they be allowed to have that much power? At the end of the day, we have due process. If they pull them over and they breathalyze them and they're positive, they're arrested, taken to a station, And then if there's a big enough case on, you know, the CPS will give them permission to charge that person. It will then go to a court, and a judge will decide whether they're convicted or not and what the punishment may be. That is the rule of law in this country. It's the way it's been for years. And, you know, you're talking about police state type things. It created a hell of a stink, a hell of a reaction. And I had a few emails. I bring a video out tomorrow morning going over a couple of those, but I wanted to read one of them to you now, which I was sent. And it's basically situations that occur on the road and worry about what the police could do if they have the extra powers. So here we go. There was a situation whilst going to work on a Thursday and just parked up. An officer pulled up and asked me if I'd been drinking. I said the last drink I had was 1 can of beer the previous Saturday. He then detained me, making me late for work because he was going to breathalyze me, which was ridiculous, of course. The result was, as expected, 0. I would never drink and drive anyway. Now, I don't drink anyway, since I didn't drink much alcohol back then. I was involved in a car accident when I was stationary and was run into the back of. The driver who caused the accident was not prosecuted, and I found out later on down the line they were actually a probation officer. Because of this person, I ended up losing my job and suffered permanent back injury. I remember when I was in a crash, the nature of mine, I kind of span around like that, you know, whip, and I get trouble with this shoulder. I've literally had to have physio on it fairly recently. My wife and I were followed home one time when we had gone out for a meal and was pulled over by the police outside our home. She was asked if she'd been drinking, and my wife is in fact teetotal. The only thing she drinks that's brewed is tea. Until I said she doesn't drink, and the only thing she'd been drinking that evening was unlimited pots of tea where we'd gone, they said and implied either she was a very careful driver or was being a careful drink driver, and said they were going to breathalyze her. This went on, and the net result of the situation is they didn't. They actually left. And, you know, that was that. But it just shows some of the tricks and some of the sleight of hand that the police may try to get a result. And if they're given extra powers, nah, that ain't going to work for me. I'm involved in something at the moment from a legal point of view, and the aftermath of it. And seeing what I've seen, it does lead me to question, you know, this as well. Very, very concerning. Okay, complete change of subject now. I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to talk about Oxford. Now, when we talk about Oxford, I refer to things like low traffic neighbourhoods, 0 emission zones, 15-minute cities. All of those terms that we heard right back at the beginning all emanated from the Oxford area. I've not heard anything for a long time. Again, I was sent an email with a news article on about them making some changes in the Oxford area. And I think Michael Hancock said he's from Oxford, who's in the chat at the moment. Perhaps he can clarify this a little bit further. What they're looking at doing, they had a 0 emission zone trial over a few roads, and they're looking at expanding it. And this is the map of the expansion. You can see there. The red in the middle is where it is at the moment. And the proposed boundary of 0 emissions is all in the green. So it's pretty much spread out all over the show, around the A4144, A420, A4165. It's just mad. And what they want to do, they want to charge anybody a fee to go within that zone. Now, at the moment, that fee is relatively cheap. It's hardly anything at all. And by 2025, they expect to double everything. And I assume that any fines levied on drivers for non-payment will also be doubled as well. So it's not great. It's not great. And the problem is, as I've said before, if one place gets away with it, I've referred to London on this, many, many times, who else is going to try it? You know, it's absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. Speaking of cars, I got this thumbnail here. Now, I tried an experiment with a video that's coming out tomorrow. I wanted some user or subscriber involvement in the creation of one of my videos. I was very interested in what you would be attracted to in a thumbnail and what you'd be attracted to in a video title. And again, I run a poll on this, and this is what we got. I made 3 thumbnails, one with the words and my face, one with just my face on its own, and the one you just saw. And I asked, which one of these would you be most likely to click on? You can see the results there. Car and title, 67%. And I ran a similar poll with, you know, the title as well to see what kind of title you click on. And what I've done, I've made that video, and that will go out tomorrow. And I've used the title and I've used the thumbnail that everyone has decided on. And I just want to run that, you know, experiment just to see the results, because I'm always interested to see what makes people go to particular things. Anyway, one more thing. RNLI. Who donates to the well, let me rephrase that. If you donate to the RNLI, have you stopped? Give me a 1 if you've stopped, or a 2 if you keep going. And again, you don't have to say if you don't want to. So a 1 if you've stopped, or a 2 if you don't. Yeah, 1, 1, 1. Many people have stopped. The time profit. I click on all your videos regardless of the thumbnail. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. To edge runners for the big corporations. Yeah, a lot of 1s. Now, the RNLI, when I was a kid, my family was a member of our local yacht club. We used to go sailing all the time. Absolutely loved it. Now, what me and my dad used to do back in the day, the RNLI used to have these orange lifeboats. I think they've still got them, orange plastic lifeboats. And we used to go door to door fundraising for the RNLI. And we used to fill a couple of those, and we're pleased to do it. But the problem is now they have such a bad reputation because of what's going on in the English Channel. How, you know, they're going across, picking up undocumented individuals and bringing them back here. It's I can't find the words. And eventually everybody's going to get fed up with it. I've been attacked on this channel for my opinion from people. You know, a lot of you are saying ferry service, and that's how we see it. Well, it appears that some people within the ranks of the RNLI are getting fed up as well. Have a look at this. RNLI rebellion grows as 12 volunteers quit the row over bullying and anti-English racism, forcing rescuers to use tiny inflatable boats that hold 8 people instead of state-of-the-art vessels that hold 85. Now, if you scroll down that news article a little bit, rebellion against the RNLI is growing as a dozen volunteers have quit a station in protest at a row. Pwllheli lifeboat station on the Llyn Peninsula in North Wales has been out of action for 6 months after volunteers accused the RNLI of bullying and anti-English sentiments. A charity commission probe into the RNLI as a whole was launched in November after separate allegations were made at stations in Essex and Merseyside. The station's 17-ton state-of-the-art £2.5 million Shannon-class boat has been returned to the RNLI's headquarters in Dorset. Instead of having the Shannon's 250-mile range with a capacity of 85 people, the new cruise will only have access to £89,000 D-class inflatable boats that can hold just 8. So there's a bit of a staffing shortage by the looks of it, and people are getting fed up with it. So there's a whole article there. Now, in the end, when things are being done to the detriment of society or the detriment of the population, and we start going, no, it's going to catch up with them. We see it again and again and again. We're just fed up with it, and it will come to bite them in the bum, which is what seems to be happening here. Anyway, what I want to do now, we've got some wonderful user comments, which Blood knows my moderator has been lining up for us. So we'll go through now and see what some of you have to say. So, Chatterbox load. Even if Reform got a few seats in Parliament, won't be too bad. Won't be too bad. Let's upset the apple cart. I'm impatient. I think we need change, and we needed it years ago. And the problem is we have generations of people, and I suppose mine is one of them, where you're programmed to behave in a certain way, unless, of course, you wake up. I'll go out and I put a tick in the box next to the blue or the red one. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore, and it hasn't done for a long time. We need to change. We need to change it now. And, you look at Wellingborough, 60% of the electorate didn't turn out. That's a bloody big number. That's a big majority. They could have made the difference, maybe. I've seen some people say it was Conservative voters, disenfranchised Conservative voters, but come out, make a difference. Hello, Tom West. Turn your back on the corrupt. Turn your back on the elite. Stop using their services. Stop the elite corruption. We see more, don't we? More news articles, more publications about what's going on, more scandal all the time. It really is horrific. Again, an example of why it doesn't work. Very simply put, West, vote Nigel. I think some people would prefer him in charge of Reform than what there is at the moment. So we'll have to see what happens there in the near future. Quick question, but has anyone wondered why the world has gone mad in just 3 years? That is a good point. So much has happened in such a short space of time. You have to wonder, is it by design? Is it just coincidence? Or is it a series of poorly made decisions have come to, bite us all at once? And it's like a giant crescendo playing out an orchestra. It's a very valid point. Blue Angel, rates are ridiculously priced and they add more on each year, but the area where you live doesn't see the money. When you say rates, Blue Angel, are you referring to council tax? Because there is documented evidence that I've seen online, and people like Richard Bobes have mentioned, where the money doesn't go into the local area. It goes straight to government and then distributed out here, there, and everywhere. So it is a bit of a rinse. And Parry, yes, I did see nice talk. I was quite happy with what they said, but they do lie to get your vote. Yeah. When UKIP was all the rage, I live in a constituency which currently is known as South Thanet, and Nigel Farage wanted to try and get the South Thanet seat, and UKIP poured everything into it. They came down here and they did the circuit all the way around the pubs, all the way around the pubs, and they, he could hold a crowd. I was actually this far from Nigel Farage, standing at a bar. Wish I'd have said hello. And they had the people that were potentially going to run the councils as well. And they all talked the big talk. Nigel didn't get in. The Conservatives won the South Thanet seat as well as the North Thanet seat as well. I think that's purely because of the demographic here. But UKIP won control of our local council. And it very quickly became apparent that they were not going to do everything they promised they would do. Again, Did they have any intention, or did they realise when they got in they actually couldn't? We will never know that debate, and they got taken apart pretty quickly. Sam, Andy, you're talking theatre. The main point you're missing is all taxes are applied if you give jurisdiction. Voting being on electoral roll is the contract. It's called jurisdiction. Sam, you're absolutely correct there. I had a thing a little while back where somebody's actually removed themselves from the electoral register when they're talking about moving away from the system. So, yeah, you're absolutely right there. Yorkshire Pud. So your local illegal immigrants get free heating, and that's deemed acceptable. Well, they get a lot more than free heating, don't they? They get an awful lot of other stuff. I mean, there's some horrific examples, like the old couple who got the letter saying that their house was going to be compulsory purchased because of, going out to that. A few, Canberra Sands, Prestatyn, they're shutting. And I've heard rumours that they may well be used. It's unacceptable, really is. Reform BBC, hello. Good to see you, my friend. Think Larry the Cat is the best option to run the country. He'd do better job than this mob. They're all interested in themselves only, not people. I saw a wonderful picture of Larry the Cat one time where it was captioned, "Sod this, I'm off." And he's probably done that a few times. Carol Ward, my husband, was REME. That's to my earlier question about armed forces, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. Well, thanks to your husband for his service. I worked with a guy once who was REME as well. Very, very clever man. Very clever man. And did a bit of survey work in the army too. Now that's Richie. The Heritage Party with David Curtin have some good ideas, but they don't seem to be getting the same traction as Reform. A lot of these parties, they don't get the traction because the mainstream media don't go near them. If any of them did, it would break the system, wouldn't it? It would break the system. Reform get more because of some of the players, Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, and all that sort of thing. But again, probably not the traction they could do. The only thing that worries me with parties like Reform is that they become a stopgap, a safety valve for pissed off Tories. Oh, yes, jump across. No, sorry, Reform means reform. That's exactly what it should be, complete and utter reform. So we will see what happens. Rishi Sunak is Richmond MP and Prime Minister. His wife is creaming off some nice tidbits from all this shit her husband fiddles in while we blindly accept it. Yorkshire Pud, again, you're right. There was a news article came out where he was asked outright if he stands to profit from a particular, we'll say, intervention for algorithm's sake. Refused to answer. Completely refused to answer. Kay Cooler, my ex-husband, was Coldstream Guards. Again, thank you for his service. So many. I mean, my dad was a military policeman. He actually joined boys' service. I think he was about 13. You're going back to the 60s, and then served 10 years roughly, come out, and then did another 22 in the normal police service. Back in the day where coppers were coppers and actually did the job. Very, very different times we live in. Tony Tasker. You try and get a war pension, you have more chance of getting blood out of a stone. The hoops you have to jump through, then told, nah, you're entitled to nothing. There you are, right there, Tony Tasker. That is the case in point. This seems to be a problem with an awful lot of veterans, and it's caused similar problems to what's happened with the child maintenance service. From my very, very brief reading, I intend to jump straight down that rabbit hole and see how far it goes. Most veterans, they've got a lot of qualities: honour, discipline, integrity, honesty. Well, most veterans, I like to hope, all of which have been developed through service to this country and their character that they formed. They go to places which none of us should ever be asked to go, and they certainly see things that none of us should ever see, and at great mental cost. And then how they repaid when they come home. You know, I'm reminded of Vietnam as well, when some of the soldiers, when that war became as unpopular as it did, came home. You know, they should be revered, and they weren't. I mean, yes, their veterans are looked after a hell of a lot better than ours are nowadays, but back then, nah, it's awful. Some of the crap they're dealt. Always poo. You can serve and give your life to the UK, but illegals with no links to the UK get treated better. That is screwed up. You know, that Lindsay Hoyle said what he said and did what he did, and you had that baying mob outside Parliament, and then Sadiq Khan and Leah having jibes with each other. But at the end of the day, we're reaching the end of a line where a load of decisions have been taken which have led us to this point in time, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. Very bad state of affairs in this country. MPs want security. What about having more police on the streets? Lord Cameron, send your kids to Ukraine. This government should all be sacked. It's all backwards, David. I totally agree with you. Kay, I think so many people are completely unaware of how many incidents are going on around the world right now with all the unrest. They're unaware, Kay, and they're also not sure of the truth as well, because I've learned that when you look at the news in this country particularly, and you're given an impression of what's going on, and that impression is what they want you to believe. So then you have to go and do your research and look in other places and try and work out what's really going on. A little bit of critical thinking never goes amiss. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think we are being completely dealt an honest card by those that should be. The Walking Boy, what's going on all over the world is by design. Too much coincidence. Wake up, people. The plan is in full swing. I'm inclined to agree with you. There's something a little bit choice about all this. And I've worked for over 40 years. I've just turned 65 and sadly now a widow. I'm sorry to hear that. I can't claim my state pension until next year. So you're one of the ones that are affected by this. You know, it's totally wrong. And you've probably planned for that day for years, and it's been cruelly taken away. Andy, mate, you don't look like a copper. I know what you're referring to. I received a funny email the other day. One of the lines in it, somebody said, they think I look like a copper. Well, my dad was one for nearly 30 years, so it might have rubbed off. Who knows? Hello, Tom West. Hello, Andy. Good to speak to you. Good to meet you. And thank you for mentioning me in your comments. I appreciate that. No problem, Tom. No problem at all. I appreciate you coming by. And I shall certainly check out what you've told me to check out. I look forward to it. I'm always interested in looking outside the box or jumping down rabbit holes and seeing what truth lies in places you might not necessarily find them. Jason Hughes, I'm having my house painted in the summer with a St. George's cross. Let's see who comes knocking, saying I can't. The amount of, you've seen the news articles the same as I have, with the flags hanging out the windows, and people come knocking saying you need to take those down. It's wrong. Pete Nikolic, the police have way too much power as far as a motorist goes. It's disgusting. Yes, which is why they shouldn't have more. They shouldn't have more. Anwar Takir, not sure I got that right. I'm one of the affected women all my life. I planned to retire at 60. Suddenly it was hiked to 66. I had to retire 2 years ago on ill health grounds. I still have another year to wait for my pension. And there would have been no consideration for you and your circumstances either, would there? It's, yeah, awful. I mean, when I was 21, I think, 21, 22, the company I worked for offered us what was called at the time a stakeholder pension. I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Bit of forethought, 40 years in advance. I'll have some of that. Now, I remember writing on a piece of paper that I wanted to retire at 65, which is another 19 years. And, you know, I've watched the world travel. I'll still be working at 70, I would think, and a lot of people will be. So it just increases. The Walking Boy, people have YouTube all wrong. We don't care about thumbnails or titles. You already have our attention. Well, thank you very much, The Walking Boy. I appreciate it. But when you look at new people coming in, I mean, one thing that is getting me at the moment, people keep accusing me of clickbait titles and clickbait thumbnails. At the end of the day, if you want to attract new people to your channel, you have to attract them with color. You have to attract them with a message. You have to attract them with something in the title that gets their attention, and then that's how you increase the community. And you know, they are vital parts of a YouTube video, vital parts of a live. I've seen there was a guy who did just daily lifestyle vlogs, and he didn't use any thumbnails, just his face, and he's got a few million subscribers. So there could be something to that. Could be. Matt Wilton, Andy the Gabby Cabby, just a heads up to you. Many channels with over 1 million subscribers use several thumbnails. I know it takes extra time, but you can always swap thumbnails if you have a few. Well, Matt, there's something I know of with YouTube that's coming, and it's not been replaced yet. They're going to be releasing a feature where when you put a video on, it's either 2 or 3. You can actually make 2 or 3 different thumbnails and attach it to the same video, and then at intervals, YouTube will change what thumbnail they put on the front of the video. And after a set amount of time, what they will do, they will look at which thumbnail's got the most traffic, dump the other 2, and stick with that. So effectively, YouTube will allow you to do that very thing. And it's a very valid point. And also what other YouTubers do as well, they look at what videos have given them the most views, and then they recycle that content, maybe a different thumbnail, maybe a slightly different title, and then go off in a slightly different direction with it. No, I might break something. Chatterbox, my mum was involved in the design of unsinkable lifeboats back in the 70s. So proud. Oh, brilliant. I've seen videos of them being tested as well, where they're literally rolled, capsized in a tank, and they come straight back up again. The time profit, very good question. What happens when the RNLI runs out of money? Be in a lot of trouble, but we'll have to see what happens there. Ryan, hello. I made it very briefly. An emotional day on my moving journey. Landed at relatives. Okay. I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? Where you finally get in there, or you're out of your current place. I can't remember now. Ryan is another YouTuber who's stepped away from things at the moment. He's taking an extended break from YouTube, so isn't really here. Ryan is my friend. I've made a couple of great mates on YouTube, and it's good to, keep in contact. Phone numbers, and we chat most days, so it's good stuff. And this country, along with most of the world, has gone mad. Can't argue with you there at all. There's craziness going on all over the place. Untitled, going over to French waters to pick them up is not rescue. It's a taxi service. They should be returned to France. I remember it was a little while ago now. There was a story whereby one of the craft got into trouble very close to the French coast. The RNLI went all the way over there, picked them up. Logically, they should be dropped in France, being the nearest land. That's what I'd say. Maybe I'm wrong. But what happened? They turned around and brought them all the way here. It just says something's not right. Bilbo Baggins, you all have to vote. I do not consent. They must log for the record. No consent to govern. Thank you. That is the whole theory behind that. That is the whole, thing behind that. I do not consent. I'm going to try and find the actual regulation or the actual law that comes from and show it to you. Really, if you've got no other choice or got no other preference, it's got to be, I do not consent. We've all had enough of it, after all. And I agree, Simon Sideways would make a great PM. I saw a thing the other day. He said he wants to get into politics when the time is right. And, a shout out to Simon as well. He hit 100,000 subscribers, and that's a great achievement for any YouTuber. I think that's wonderful stuff. I think he's actually on 104,000 now. So it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Matt Wooten, I've got a few teddies from RNLI passed on from when my nan supported them. She didn't have much, but tried to help them. Don't know how she'd feel if she was still here. RIP. Absolutely. Another generation that built up all this with support and everything else. And it's this generation that's doing them in. Bar Brady, the uni socialists have taken control of a lot of charities and use them to fund a socialist agenda and a comfy lifestyle for themselves and their mates. You can see it in action every day, can't you? I mean, when I look at charities, genuine charities, one thing I want to know is how much is the chief executive earning before I even consider donating. Because there's many charities that you donate to, and a very small percentage of your donation actually goes to what it's meant to. And that's just so wrong to me. So wrong. Chris, if they were genuine, they would explain why they couldn't do things and prove it. Absolutely. If people are genuine, they come up with the proof. Cosmic Wartoad, anyone watch Jeff Taylor this afternoon? There was a video of his that popped up on my timeline, which I've got to catch up with his stuff, actually. Now that's Richie. You can remove yourself from the public electoral register. Done that years ago. Yeah, so did I. There's two versions of the electoral register, isn't there? There's one, which is the private council one, and then your details can appear on another one, which can be sold, I think, to debt collectors and cold call companies and all that sort of thing. Bit dodgy. Banned again. Denmark and Canada just been hit with a cyber attack, I just heard. Oh my God. But we'll certainly look into that. Haley Barr, I think we need an English parliament like the Welsh and Scottish. If you go back to the Acts of Union way back in history, what caused all this mess in the first place, there was actually an English parliament. And, the Act of Union is what joined Scotland and England together into what we now call the United Kingdom. And obviously Wales came along later on this landmass of ours. I personally consider myself English. Some of the history and some of what I've read about this union of ours beggars belief. And, I do somewhat agree with that comment. And the only way that would happen is if somebody walked away from the whole arrangement. But, that has to be fought for. Thank you for that. Russell, we all know what's going on. A realistic, viable way to stop it. That is the question. Yes, totally agree. David L., we're camping out in March for the veterans. Oh, great. Brilliant. I remember when there was the Northern Ireland stuff going on, the bikers, when they went through London. That was that was really something. I've got a friend of mine who's ex-army, a veteran. He lives down the road from me. He went up on the bikes, and there was a great big roar all the way through the streets of London. Marvellous when you all get together and show that support for one another. A couple of more comments, and then we'll wrap things up. Blue Angel, politicians are rich. They should live like the poor for a month so they can see how poor live. Then they might understand. Years ago, there was a program on the telly where people were told that they had to live on benefits for a week. And one of those was Michael Portillo, after he come out of government and retired from politics. And I remember he said at the end, I think he was quite shocked. He said, if I knew then what I know now, then some of the things I decided on would have been very, very different indeed. And, you know, just shows what bubble they're in. Kenneth, how come Rishi Sunak took the oath of allegiance to defend the faith in the realm of the Bhagavad Gita, and your man north of the border taking the oath of allegiance to defend the faith, the Quran? It just shows you how screwed over it is, doesn't it? Absolutely. Right, folks, I've got some other comments, but we're at the hour, so I'm not going to be able to get to those, I'm afraid. I want to thank everybody for coming along tonight. You've all been great. Gone over several topics and had a chance to hear what a lot of you had to say. Appreciate you all. Tomorrow, there will be videos coming out from 8 in the morning. I've got to nip indoors now and just finish up the last little bits. So that'll be good. Massive support, massive thanks to everybody, including the YouTubers that I've mentioned this evening. It's all good. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. Please, can I ask, if you haven't done so and you've only just popped in, please hit the like button, the thumbs up, because that does help the algorithm push this live. Share it with your friends, share it with your contacts. Subscribe if you haven't, and get your mates to as well. Let's get those numbers up. The channel is doing so well, and I'm really, really grateful for all your time and all your support. Thank you, and I will see you, well, the pre-recorded me will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. For now, toodaloo.